Hello there, friends, and welcome to episode 22 of That One Gaming Podcast. I'm Colin, otherwise known as Delicious Morsels, and here today we've got Lucas, aka Carnival9. How you doing, Lucas?
Doing good.
All right, and we've also got Neal, better known as VMK89. How are you today, Neal?
I'm doing well.
All right, so if you're new to the podcast, welcome. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Google, or one of many other podcasting platforms out there where the three of us get together every other week to talk about a variety of topics in the world of gaming. This week, we're talking about those characters that you just love to hate. The baddest of the bad, the princess snatching, hedgehog-chasing, world domination-craving villains that drive our protagonists forward. Video game villains come in many different varieties, from the pure evil, completely irredeemable type to the guy that's actually a little bit more relatable than you're comfortable admitting. We've picked out a few of our favorites, and we're going to talk about those today. But before we get into our main topic discussion, we like to take some time at the front of the episode to just talk about the games that we've been playing lately. So, Lucas, what have you been playing?
I've been playing Metroid Prime Remastered.
Big surprise.
Yeah. I got it, I think it was Friday or Saturday last week was when it arrived. Because Colin and I worked out a game trade. And
yeah.
I'm giving Colin a spare copy of Metroid Prime Trilogy that I happen to have. Long story short, I misplaced my disc, so I ordered a new disc. So I had a spare disc. So Colin offered, because he wanted Prime Trilogy for obvious Metroid Prime reasons.
Yeah.
Traded me a copy of Hi-Fi Rush on Steam and a physical copy of Prime Remastered for the Switch. So I've been playing that all week.
I'm really glad that showed up because GameStop never gave me a tracking number for it.
Weird.
I got an email that said, hey, we're shipping this, your item is shipped, but it didn't have a tracking number in it like you would expect. And then I went into my account settings and it said it was awaiting item, awaiting stock or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, we going to be waiting a bit for this or what?
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for my order from PlayAsia, but that's because I'm waiting for the Japanese version, which had an even bigger delay on its release than the North American version.
Yep.
Which, come to find out, I bought the Japanese version because I wanted the Japanese version box art. Come to find out, the North American version has that art on the inside, and it's just a reversible sleeve.
Yeah.
It's man. Oh, well.
They pulled a sneaky on you.
Yep. Whatever. I'm not even mad. Supporting Metroid. That's the important part.
Yeah. And I'm honestly kind of sightseeing with this playthrough. Because I started learning speedrunning tech in the original Metroid Prime on the GameCube quite a few years ago. And as a result, all of my playthroughs have kind of been just get the space jump boots as soon as you land on Talon 4, and then everything's all out of order. And I mean, never quite learned out of bounce strats, but done stuff like early plasma beam, early power bombs, early space jump, obviously, because that enables so many of those tricks. And this is the first time since I think the first time, or I guess the most recent time I've played through Prime Trilogy Prime on the Wii, that I've just done a regular playthrough of Metroid Prime and just kind of taken in the environment, and it's been great so far. I think I'm up to 88% items scanned and 71% items collected so far. I think I might actually try and get 100% of both because I haven't before. So
you might as well if you're just kind of doing a sightseeing run this time.
Yeah.
See all the sites, collect all the things.
Yeah. Scan all the scannables. Learn all the lore. This game's got some great lore, by the way. I highly recommend scanning everything you can.
Scan everything.
It's also important to scan stuff on Frigate Orpheon when you first start there, because you won't ever see that stuff again.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah. And obviously, a lot of the bosses are like one-time only scans, so don't forget those.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I reset last night because I forgot to scan the Phazon Elite when I was fighting him for the Chozo artifact he has.
Whoops.
Yep. And don't forget to scan things you can interact with items after you get those items. Like the Morph Ball Bomb sockets, once you get the Morph Ball Bombs, are scannable for research. Same thing with the Spider Ball track and the grapple points. So that stuff's important too.
Yeah, I am very much looking forward to my copies arriving eventually.
Yep.
I think as soon as I get here, like I'm just gonna open one up and just start right away.
Yeah.
So I'm really feeling that Metroid itch right now.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see what they did with Prime. I briefly owned Prime 2 back in the day. In the brief moment of time I had a GameCube. And it was good, but it was really hard, and I didn't quite understand Metroid back then. So I didn't really get very far. So I'm looking forward to the OG now.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
My experience with Prime was similar, in that I didn't get very far.
Yeah. Metroid Prime 2 was kind of a struggle for me at first. Yeah, I didn't own a copy until the same garage sale that I picked up my Revision Zero disc of Metroid Prime for the GameCube. The garage sale had both of them.
Nice.
So it took me a long time to get through Prime 2 on the GameCube the first time, and then I think it was actually that Christmas after I'd finished Prime 2 on the GameCube, I got Prime Trilogy. And my first playthrough of Prime, I believe, was, I think it was 12 hours, 15 minutes playtime with 74% items collected. And my first playthrough of Prime 2 was also 12 hours, 15 minutes with 74% items collected, which was a really weird coincidence.
Metroid Prime 2 echoes your Prime 1 playtime.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, if there's any benchmark to that, it's like Prime 2 is maybe about as difficult as Prime 1, just differently difficult. There's a lot of puzzles in that game that didn't quite vibe with me the same way they did in Prime 1. There's also a couple of really bad bosses. I'm looking at you, Spider Guardian. Boost Guardian's kind of a bear, too. Why is it the Morph Ball upgrades? Weird.
That is weird.
But yeah, having a lot of fun with Prime Remastered. Still kind of mixed feelings on the new controls, personally.
Well, you got 20 years of muscle memory to
get
rid of. Are you playing on a GameCube controller?
Nope. Playing dual stick on Joy-Cons on the Switch.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, if you're trying to play the new controls on the GameCube controller, that would probably trip you up even more.
I don't even know if that would work, how they have the buttons assigned.
Huh. That's true, because there's more buttons on the Joy-Cons than there is on the GameCube controller.
Yeah. I think right now my main criticisms of the dual stick config is that I don't really care for having to press the X button in order to select beams with the D-pad. That's
weird.
Yeah.
So you had to basically like hold down the X button and then you can select beams with the D-pad? That's weird.
Yep. Especially because I find myself switching between beams a lot more frequently than I do switching visors, which switching visors is just pressing the direction corresponding to the visor you want on the D-pad.
Okay.
So it's defaulted to visor selection, and then you press X to be able to select beams. And since Prime has a beam swapping system instead of a beam stacking system, like, say, Super Metroid or Metroid Fusion or Prime 3, actually, you have to select what beam you want to use, and there's doors that correspond to each different beam type to open them.
So you're swapping
kind
them
of
constantly.
Yes. And honestly, once you get the plasma beam, you want to be using that as your main offensive beam. So you're changing even more, because being able to incinerate jetpack troopers in 3 shots is really nice. Honestly, in pathways that have a lot of ice beam doors, the ice beam has a horribly, horribly slow rate of fire, so don't really want to be using that in combat all the time, because not everything freezes without charging up the ice beam, and that takes even longer, especially because they introduce something kind of handy. They changed the default behavior of just pulling the trigger. When you have the power beam equipped, for example, if you press the fire button, then it fires a 3-shot burst, and then if you happen to have the charge beam, it'll start charging, which is handy, but if you want to just fire a charge shot, it's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
So the ice beam behavior is fire a single shot, and then, or I think it's either 1 or 2 shots, and then it starts charging, but it takes a while.
Yeah, I can't wait to start playing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Neal, what have you been playing?
I've been playing a couple things. First of all, Sonic Frontiers. I collected a bunch of the Coco things, and I had a huge army of them surrounding me every time I stopped, which I think is how you check how many Cocos you have. Is you stand still long enough, and they'll just kind of fade into existence. But they're collectibles for upgrading your speed and ring capacity. And I put most of mine into speed once I realized I had so many. Yeah. Well, the ring capacity, I don't really know what that does. And I know what speed does.
I would assume ring capacity just makes it so you can survive longer in the boss fights when you're supersonic. But I don't really see any use in that personally, because it's also just making it a lot harder to get to maximum ring capacity.
Right, yeah. It doesn't seem as good.
Yeah.
Like, I can see, if you get it up really high, then, you can survive longer without losing all your rings. Because, every time you get hit, you don't lose all your rings like you do in classic Sonic games.
Yeah.
So you would survive longer if you had a really high ring capacity. So, yeah, I guess I get that. But, no, I put everything into speed, and I'm loving to get to ring capacity, as we said, and just sprint around it really fast. Fun game. But yeah, I'm enjoying running around with full ring capacity and just going very fast. I haven't been finding any cyberspace levels recently anymore, so I've been going back. I'm assuming I just gotta keep unlocking Chaos Emeralds, but I guess I gotta go back to levels I've already completed. I think I might end up pulling up a guide for this game to get it done for a side quest episode that we're going to be doing soon.
You know what I did?
What?
I just went fishing.
You just went fishing?
I just went fishing.
Yeah. I might do that too.
Yeah, I got so fed up just running around aimlessly that I was just like, okay, I'm just going to go fishing. So I got everything I needed to get the 6th Chaos Emerald, and the 7th Emerald is what initiates the boss fight for the island.
Okay. Good to know.
So I did the first boss fight, and it was all right. I mean, it's definitely cool. Like you turn into supersonic and then you're doing like these super fast punches and stuff and like but it's really repetitive.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's just you go in, you fly in, you do a bunch of quick punches, and then when you see it attack, you hold down the R1 and L1 in order to do the parry. And like the parry isn't like timing based in this game. You can literally just as soon as you see it start to pull its arm back to strike you, you just hold those buttons down, and then once it hits you, it initiates the parry. And then you just go in and you hit him. You see him take his arm back again. You get your parry ready, and it's just that over and over and over until the boss finally dies. I ended up running out of rings my first time. Because I wasn't quite sure what was going on, really. I didn't quite understand it. But then second time through, I was like, oh, okay, I got this. And it was super easy. I don't think I was fewer than 100. I went in with max ring capacity, and I don't think I had fewer than 100 less rings than I started with when I beat that boss. So I'm on the second island now, and I like it a little bit better. I think the second island is definitely better than the first. The first island is very basic, especially like even with all the like different running around things you can do. Right off the bat from the second island, it looked like there was a lot more to do with it, but I found one cyberspace level that just really pissed me off.
Oh, okay.
And I put the game down again.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's because when you go into the cyberspace levels, you don't have camera control, but they're still in a 3D space a lot of the time.
Right. Yes, because it's boost formula gameplay.
Yeah. And there's these in this level, there's these rotating platforms that you have to jump on.
Oh no.
And over again. And you being more experienced with 3D Sonic games than me, it's probably other ones that work like this too, but there's almost like a little bit of a momentum that builds up in these rotating platforms. So when you jump, you still kind of you retain some of that a little bit. It's really hard to explain, but it just doesn't feel good. And then combine that with the lack of camera control. I was just like,
well, I know most of the cyberspace are based on previous Sonic levels.
Yeah.
So I would probably recognize what it is. But from what you're describing, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh man. I had to put the game down after spending probably 10 minutes failing attempts at that. Just random stupid stuff, not having camera control, messing with your viewing angle and stuff like that.
Right.
Because the platforms are rotating, and sometimes they have something in the middle of them, so you can rotate around behind that, and then suddenly you can't see your character anymore.
Weird.
Yeah, you'll know it when you get to it. But I like the second island though. It's pretty neat.
Right. The actual like interaction with the Frontiers gameplay is much better.
Yeah, okay. I think I'm just gonna skip that cyberspace level entirely.
Right.
Just do more fishing once I find Big Cat again.
Right.
Sonic Frontiers. It is a game of all time.
It is. It is indeed a goat. The other thing I've been playing, I picked up Final Fantasy 1 again at work. I've been getting bits of footage for it because I had asked Lucas for you to bring footage of it one day, and you didn't do that, I think, and you were going to have me download the BizHawk file. But it kind of clicked that iPhones have inbuilt screen recording. I can just use that. So that's what I'm doing now. I started a fresh file, but I'm also kind of like jumping back and forth between old save files because I made multiple throughout. Not completely intentionally. I think they're like mishaps, but you can't delete the files, your save files in Final Fantasy on the mobile, which is weird and also kind of scary considering there's only 20 save files, which I mean is a lot for a game, but still.
Yeah. There should be way to do it. It's just like really strange and convoluted because it's on a mobile device.
Yeah. Probably. I don't know if I've tried doing the like slide to the left thing that works in some other things. I might try that.
Slide to the left.
Have you tried like a
Slide
long
to the
press?
Like a long press? Yeah, I think I have.
Okay.
You cha-cha real smooth.
No, I have not tried that. I will see if that helps. But yeah, those are the two games I've been playing. I'm also looking forward to Wave 4 of the Booster Pass in Mario Kart 8. They just released a new video showing off all the new tracks.
Oh my god, more.
More! Yeah, it's the Fruit Cup and the from Super Mario World, the fruit, and the Boomerang Cup from the Boomerang Flower in Super Mario Kart 8.
All right.
Yeah, I am disappointed in it, not because any of the tracks look terrible or anything, but they have a GameCube track, which means that my theory of they're not doing GameCube tracks at all because they're building up to Double Dash might be at least partially wrong. Yeah, I was really hoping like I would never see any more GameCube tracks here. Then we get the Double Dash 2 coming up with Mario Kart 9. But yeah, they have Waluigi Stadium as a track. But yeah, we'll have to find out next episode how those tracks are. They're coming out this Thursday, so
cool.
Check that out.
Yeah.
What games has Colin been playing?
A lot. Yeah, I've been playing quite a few games the last couple weeks.
I feel like I've seen what seems like at least 3 game completions since last episode.
Probably. I know at least 2 off the top of my head. I've been, like I mentioned earlier, I have been waiting for my copies of Metroid Prime Remastered to come up so I can play that. And I've just had this huge Metroid itch going. So I finally played through Metroid Zero Mission, which I've been wanting to do ever since I got really big into Metroid. Right around the time Dread came out was when the series just finally clicked for me. And I played through Fusion for the first time. I've had a copy of Zero Mission for quite a while, and I dumped the ROM onto my Steam Deck with my GB operator and started playing that on the Steam Deck. And what's really cool about the Steam Deck is you can do custom inputs on a per game basis, which is really neat. And one of the things you can do is you can have your custom input be like 2 or more inputs at a time on a single button, because the way that the aiming up and down works in the Game Boy Advance Metroid games, because you don't have as many buttons as you did on other consoles, it's really weird to aim down, where you have to like hold a shoulder button but also the down button at the same time to aim down, because the shoulder button to aim, otherwise the shoulder button just aims up, whereas in other games like Super Metroid you have a dedicated aim up and a dedicated aim down button. So what I did for this was I set up a custom button input on the left trigger that instead of just being a left trigger press, it was a left button press and down at the same time. So that way I press the right trigger, I aim up, I press the left trigger, it aims down. And it was
just like Super.
Yeah, exactly. There's a little caveat with that though, because of just the way the game is programmed. You would also crouch automatically in the process of aiming down, but it's like, for all intents and purposes, it's like whatever, didn't care. It still worked the way I wanted it to. Most of the time I was crouching on the edge of a platform and shooting down anyway, so
yeah.
But yeah, Zero Mission's really good. It took me a little over 4 hours to beat it, which is not bad. It's spread out across several playthroughs.
Yeah.
Or several play sessions. I mean, sure, that's nothing compared to the more seasoned veterans, but considering that was a blind playthrough, I didn't look up anything. I was just exploring and going wherever I went. I mean, think it was pretty good. And Zero Mission's a good game. Now I just need to play through Samus Returns, and I will have played through a version of every 2D Metroid. And then I get to play Prime. But yeah, aside from that, I've also been playing on my lunch breaks at work this little indie game. It's called A Space for the Unbound. And I heard some really positive things about this game on the Nintendo Voice Chat podcast a few weeks ago, and it sounded intriguing. So I found that PlayAsia had a physical version of it available, so I ordered that, and that came in, and I finally got some time to play it this week, and it's been pretty good. It dabbles in some pretty sensitive like narrative material, like kind of like Celeste does. It has a warning like right at the start, like it deals with topics of depression, suicide, and stuff, and it warns you right at the start of the game. It's like, if this is too much for you, just here's a heads up. It's really interesting so far. I'm only probably about an hour, not quite 2 hours into the game, but already something like really strange is happening. Like, it's hard to explain, but the game itself has a really, really pretty pixel art aesthetic, and it's kind of gameplay wise like a point and click adventure in a way. There's a lot of like there's a lot of going around and picking up key items and stuff to use in other places and solve puzzles and stuff like that. And yeah, it's been pretty nice. I'm looking forward to where the story goes, because I hear it gets like pretty intense, and it doesn't really show itself completely until toward the end of the game. So I'm looking forward to that. I've also heard it's not that long of a game. I think the average playthrough is about 10 hours, so not too bad. One notable thing about it, though, is that it's developed by a small indie company in Indonesia, and the game takes place in 90s era Indonesia. It's got a really cool aesthetic to it. I really like it. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting further in that game. And then I also started playing the Kaito Files DLC for Lost Judgment. That's I posted on Twitter that I counted that as a game I beat this year, even though it's technically DLC, because it's still at least 8 hours long. It's its own separate, like, self-contained campaign. It's not just like a quick DLC mission or anything. It's got its own storyline and everything, but it follows after Kaito, which is Yagami's partner at his detective agency and stuff. He's such a great character. I freaking love the guy. He's just a big brute, and he's not ashamed of it. But yeah, something comes up with past love of his, and the entire story scenario for this DLC kind of revolves around trying to track down this person that he was in a relationship with, because she'd gone missing. And so yeah, and then there's a typical Yakuza series twists and turns and stuff. It ended up being really good. The final boss fight kind of caught me off guard, but in a good way. It was really good. I loved it. Yeah, just I loved the Judgment series, and just spending even just 8 hours more in it with another one of the characters of the series was really great. I really enjoyed it, my time with it. So definitely recommend it. If you played Lost Judgment, play the Kaito Files DLC afterward. It's really good. and speaking of Yakuza, I started another Yakuza game this weekend. I can't stop. I can't stop playing them. They're just too good. So I started Yakuza Kiwami, which is a remake of the original PS2 Yakuza game. Unfortunately, does not have the original PS2 dub in it, which, I mean, it's not really unfortunate. It's just unfortunate for irony's sake, because it was actually really, really bad. But it did feature Mark Hamill voicing Goro Majima.
Oh.
Oh.
And apparently Mark Hamill does not remember voicing that character.
Yeah.
Huh.
But just for curiosity's sake, as I was playing through the few first hours of Kiwami, I looked up the English dub of the original game, and yeah, it's a freaking trip. The team that did the localization got really into just copious amounts of swearing at every single turn. Like,
Oh,
they didn't
no.
really try to be like completely faithful to the original scripts. They really went off the rails with it. And
Huh.
oh my god. To its credit though, some of the voice acting was actually legitimately decent. There's just a lot of swearing in it in just the most ridiculous freaking B movie type way. It was quite a trip to watch some of those clips. But what I noticed was interesting is that this remake is pretty much shot for shot like the same as the original game, which is pretty neat. So it's quite literally just the original game, just they completely redid the script and the voiceovers. There's only a Japanese voiceover in this version. And obviously the graphics look nice because it's a PS4 game, but
Yeah.
the story's taken a little bit of time to catch me with this one though, because it's kind of all over the place. I have heard that the first Yakuza game isn't exactly the greatest from the story front, so I'm just gonna kind of stick with it because the gameplay is still good. And one thing that I do really like about this game is Majima himself, because he's just constantly stalking Kiryu, which is the character that you play as. He's just constantly stalking him all throughout the town. So you'll just be walking around minding your own business, and all of a sudden you hear Kiryu-chan! And he runs up and he's like, "Fight me!" And like he's just constantly trying to come up with creative ways to get you to fight him, and Kiryu's just like, "I don't want to fight you. I don't have any interest in fighting you." He's like, "Well, what if I gave you a reason to fight me?" So he's like, and this one time he like dressed up as a cop. And he's like, comes up behind you and he's like, "Freeze!" And you're like, "Wait, what?" And then you turn around and it's just Majima dressed up as a cop. And he's like, he threatens and he's like, "All right, now you gotta let me pat you down." And you're just like, seriously? It's like, yes. It's like, if I find a weapon, I'm gonna be really disappointed. Oh my god, yeah. It's really funny because I just played Yakuza 0 yeah, back in January, I guess. Whatever. I just played Yakuza 0, which is a prequel to the original game. And it kind of sets up Kiryu and Majima, their backstories and how they came to be the characters they are in the original game. But you actually get to play as both those characters in 0, as opposed to now you're just playing as Kiryu, and Majima's just a side character that's constantly stalking you throughout the city. But he was like nothing like this in Yakuza 0. Like, it wasn't like he was a very, very like serious kind of character throughout the entire game. And then all of a sudden, like a switch flips in his brain at the end of the game, and he just turns into this crazy madman that he is now. And they call him the Mad Dog of they call him Mad Dog Majima. But yeah, so even if the story is a little bit of a drag so far, I'm enjoying it for all the little run-ins with Majima throughout the game, because the guy is just freaking a nut. And then lastly, the last game that I've been playing that I want to talk about. I started a new game in Elden Ring this week.
Oh yeah, I saw.
Yeah. Ever since playing Celeste, I've just really been wanting to go back to Elden Ring. Just this insanely difficult game that is brutally just so
Ever since you hurt your
unrelenting.
feelings with Celeste, you felt like hurting your feelings in Elden Ring again.
Yes. Yep. Ever since playing Celeste, it's just in the back of my mind the whole time. It's like, man, I really want to get back to Elden Ring. I just, because I freaking love the game, I'm just really bad at it. So
Maybe I should get Elden Ring since I've been beaten into submission by Celeste at this point.
Do it. It's so good. The nice thing about Elden Ring too is like if you find a boss that's too hard, you can just go off and do whatever else for the time being. So like I beat so back in my original playthrough I started with a samurai and I completely messed up my build with how I allocated all of my skill points because I was playing a melee class. So I figured, okay, well, I'm doing a lot of melee attacks. I should probably be investing points into strength, right? Which wasn't technically incorrect. But the I think other Souls games do this too, but I'm not experienced enough with them to be able to tell this, but there's a thing in the game that they do called scaling. And each weapon in the game has a specific stat that its damage is tied to. So, for instance, like a basic sword would have a letter grade next to the strength stat with how well it scales to that stat. So, come to find out that the samurai's main weapon of choice, the katana, doesn't scale to strength, it scales to dexterity.
Oh.
So I had all of my points dumped into strength only to find out that it wasn't doing anything for me because my weapons didn't care about my strength stat.
Lovely.
And there's a way that you can respec later in the game, but you had to fight a boss to get there, and I couldn't figure out how to get to it. So finally, that's when I dropped the samurai playthrough. And then I finally came back to it. I started over, and now I'm a confessor, which is a strength and faith build. So faith is one of the types of magic that you can use in the game. And I'm really liking it so far. I found this really, really busted spell called Lightning Spear. That's just, it scales to faith, which is what you want with a faith build. So I've just been leveling up my faith, and like this thing just completely wrecks. I wrecked a boss with it today. Just like standing back, I summoned in my little jellyfish that you can summon in, and then it was distracting the boss and drawing aggro while I was just standing back and throwing these freaking spears of lightning at it. And they take a big freaking chunk of health out of these things too. So yeah, so that was like this build is really kind of clicking with me now. I'm still kind of looking for all the pieces to fill it out and get all the stuff that I want, because there's this one build that I'm referencing is like using like dual scythes and stuff, which is really cool. And then there's some really good faith spells, including the lightning spear that I've got already that goes into it. But yeah, I think if you're new to Souls games, I think the magic casting hybrid between like a melee class and a magic caster like the confessor class is, I think it's pretty user friendly because you can get those strong spells like lightning spear that can do huge chunks of damage, but then you still have the melee ability as well. I freaking love Elden Ring. I can't wait to play it again after we record this. I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's brutally difficult, but it's still a lot of fun. So yeah, I guess we'll see in a couple weeks if I stick with it or not. But I think I will. I think I've got a good rhythm now. And if I find something that I can't quite get yet, then I'll just go around and level up a bit more until I can. So I think this lightning spear spell is gonna get me pretty far though. It's pretty good. Like
Yeah.
it's just, it does insane amounts of damage, and it's only gonna do more as I level up my faith stat. So, and there's this one equipment upgrade that you can get that reduces the time it takes to cast a spell. And this is already a pretty quick casting spell, but like with that item also, it's just like instantaneous. You're just like lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt. It's just great. So that'll be one of the things that I'm looking for relatively soon. I'm finishing up the Weeping Peninsula currently, and I'm gonna start looking for more stuff for my build. So yeah, that's enough about all of that. Let's get into our main topic. Topic of villains. The bad guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the bad guys that we like. Lucas, why don't you share your first villain pick with us?
Well, in predictable me fashion, we're going to go with a series that I have long been a fan of. And I'm going to go with Dr. Wily from the Mega Man games.
Mega Man!
Lots of Mega Man games.
Yeah.
Even more Mega Man games than you probably even think. Because, I mean, he's the main villain of Mega Man 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and base. And he created Zero, who is one of the main protagonists of the Mega Man X series. And Zero carried with him a computer virus known as the Zero virus that eventually infected Sigma and became the Sigma virus, which resulted in all of the Maverick outbreaks throughout Mega Man X 1 through 8 and Command Mission.
Oh.
A problem which still persisted into the Mega Man Zero series, which is now about, I think, 500 years after the original Mega Man series.
Wow.
And, well, I mean, that one's kind of a given because Zero's the main protagonist of the Mega Man Zero series. So, of course, Zero being there, there's going to be Zero virus shenanigans, most likely. Mostly it's that there's still Mavericks after all of these years, and, like, going 500 years in the future in stasis at the end of Mega Man X5 didn't have any real effect on Maverick outbreaks not happening. As a matter of fact, Mega Man X ended up creating a bunch of clones of himself to kind of deal with that while he was the leader of Neo Arcadia. And then, thanks to the presence of the Biometal W, and also similarly Biometal Z and Biometal O, which are, well, presumably Biometal W's after Dr. Whale, or however it's pronounced, which the antagonist of Mega Man X, or Mega Man 04, if I remember correctly. Then Biometal Z is derived from Zero, and Biometal O is derived from Omega, not to be confused with the Sonic character. In this case, Omega is also Zero, as confusing as that is, but it's a different Zero.
Right.
Long story short, somehow there's two of them in the Mega Man Zero series.
Interesting. Now,
yeah.
if I recall correctly, in a lot of the Mega Man, I assume in the original Mega Mans, they will introduce what seems to be a new villain. And it's like, oh no, wait, it was Wily the whole time.
Yep. Starting with Mega Man 4, there was Dr. Cossack, a Russian scientist that had built a set of robot masters that it was later revealed to be done under Dr. Wily's influence because Dr. Wily had kidnapped Dr. Cossack's daughter, Kalinka. So while you're trying to fight Dr. Cossack under fear that he's going to be the new Dr. Wily, Proto Man is off rescuing Kalinka from Dr. Wily, and then you go fight Dr. Wily because he's the bad guy the whole time.
What do you know?
Yeah. Then Mega Man X5. seemingly Proto Man is the bad guy. As it turns out, it's actually Dark Man, who's a robot built by Dr. Wily, disguised as Proto Man. So then you go fight Dr. Wily again after you figure that out, and the real Proto Man shows up. Then Mega Man 6, you think the bad guy is a man called Mr. X, who is the arranger of this big international robot battle tournament. And then the 8 other participants in this tournament turn evil, so Mega Man has to defeat them. And you think it's Mr. X who's behind it. But no, it's actually Dr. Wily, because Dr. Wily is just Mr. X. He's wearing sunglasses and a cape instead of his usual lab coat.
You couldn't recognize him that way.
Yep.
It's like how you couldn't couldn't recognize Char inside the Gundam because he has sunglasses and a haircut.
Yeah.
But it was me all along.
Yep. And then he gets arrested, and then it's actually Dr. Wily the whole time in Mega Man 7, and similarly Mega Man 8, because he escapes with the aid of Bass at the end of Mega Man 7. He doesn't really do the whole cause trouble and make an entire someone else be the bad guy for the first castle in Mega Man 9 and 10, or 11. But yeah,
9 and 10 are the one that go back to pixel graphics, right? For NES version? Okay, yeah. That kind of makes sense that it's just plain old Dr. Wily.
Yeah.
Trying to twist it up.
Yep. But yeah, on top of just causing chaos for Mega Man for 12 games, and hopefully counting. Mega Man 12-1. He's also responsible for the creation of Zero, as previously mentioned, who indirectly is responsible for all of the Mavericks occurring in Mega Man X series, in Mega Man Zero series. He also created Bass, who is probably the closest that Mega Man has to a direct rival, like another robot of varying degree of sentience that, just kind of skill for skill, if you will, on par with Mega Man, although Bass is slightly different. If you played Mega Man and Bass, you know that doesn't have a charge buster. Instead, he can aim in 8 directions, and otherwise they can both absorb the weapon of other robot masters that they defeat. And there's also
I always thought Dr. Wily was interesting because he's always like begging for mercy at the end of the games.
Yeah.
Usually what you see with villains in video games.
Yeah. He's caused enough trouble to where at the end of Mega Man 7, Mega Man almost violates Asimov's 3 laws of robotics and wants to kill Dr. Wily, which is really scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, he sure puts up one heck of a fight, but yeah, usually after you destroy the Wily machine and the Wily capsule, he goes right into the same routine of begging for mercy. Mega Man, please don't hurt me. I'll be good this time, he says in Mega Man 3, and then Mega Man 3 happens, and we're like, I'm not going to fall for that again.
But I did.
Yep.
Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on. Fool me. How many times have you fooled me now?
12.
Heckin' bamboozled.
Also is responsible for the creation of the gear system in Mega Man 11, which is neat.
Gear.
Basically allows robots equipped with the gear change system to either increase their speed or increase their power output, or in the case of the modified one that Dr. Light installed in Mega Man, do both even, which there was some ethical questions that Dr. Light opposed back in their university days that ended up getting Dr. Wily kicked out of the university for wanting to install it on robots.
Oof.
Mainly the the moral debate there was related to like, well, we're working on trying to make sentient robots like Mega Man, and there was some ethical debate of installing this double gear system to push the robots to their theoretical limits and potentially damage them in the process from overexerting. And whereas Wily's view was more of, well, they're robots and we build them as tools. So
yeah. What about Neal? What's your first pick for boss?
Well,
Not a boss.
my
Well,
first
they are bosses, but I mean they're bad guys. Your first bad
my first
guy.
pick is very similar to Lucas's in quite a few ways. They are both very close to my heart series that I've loved forever, and they're both doctors and both mad scientists. It's Dr. Eggman.
Ta-da!
ta-da!
Yeah.
The other blue platforming and game Doctor antagonist.
Snooping as usual, I see.
That's Dr. Robotnik, not Dr. Eggman.
No!
I've honestly, I wasn't super into Dr. Eggman as much as a kid, because most of what I watched as a younger kid was Sonic X, and Eggman in that show is not great. He's very, like, cartoony. But, well, I mean, it's a cartoon, so what do you expect? But at the same time, once I started watching Sonic Sat AM in middle school on YouTube, because that was a thing by then, I got really invested in that show because, boy oh boy, is Eggman scary in Sonic Sat AM. I also tended to play the Game Boy games and the Genesis games, where Eggman doesn't really do a whole lot other than what's implied of like, oh, he's turning robots or animals into robots, and he's, making these huge factories. But it's more in some of the more later games that Dr. Eggman really goes off the chain. Starting, I would say, Sonic Adventure, he kind of causes perfect chaos, but that isn't necessarily intentional. Like, he's giving ancient deity Chaos Emeralds, and so that is kind of his fault, and he's got the egg carrier. But it's not until Sonic Adventure 2 that he does stuff like blowing up the moon. And Sonic Heroes doesn't have Eggman as the main villain, so that one doesn't really count.
Yeah,
Shadow the Hedgehog is... Yeah, Eggman is in that, and you fight him, but it turns out it's Metal Sonic.
Yes.
Neo Metal Sonic, who is cool, at least in design.
Yeah.
IDW actually did some really good stuff with Neo Metal Sonic. We get to see a super form of Neo Metal Sonic. It's awesome. But Sonic 06, Eggman kidnaps the princess over and over again. Sonic Unleashed, he breaks apart the world. Sonic Colors, even though that game is kind of light and fluffy, he's trying to mind control the entire planet is his ultimate goal, which is kind of nuts. And then in Sonic Generations, he literally destroys time and space to try to defeat Sonic.
Wow.
So,
what a boss.
Yeah. Eggman just kind of gets progressively more evil.
Well,
And
Sonic
I kinda like that
Forces
about him.
starts out, he wins.
Yeah, he does.
And then in the course of 4 hours,
Yeah.
You
He
take
loses.
it back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mentioned Sonic SatAM earlier. He was super evil. Look up just Robotnik talking in that show, and you'll get an idea what he's like. That voice by Jim Cummings.
It's so menacing.
Yeah, it's terrifying. But yeah, he has a sidekick in that who's just kind of like sniveling little sidekick that's always scheming behind his back, and he's abusive to him. But yeah, that was kind of the launching pad for Archie Sonic getting a little bit more dark. And boy, howdy does Archie Sonic Eggman get very dark.
Yeah.
We
Dark enough
mentioned-
to scare Dr. Wily.
Yeah. We mentioned Dr. Wily, and Dr. and Wily and Sonic's Eggman meet in the crossover, since Archie the comic books got a hold of the Mega Man license, and it was written by the same guy, so they just kind of a natural thing you're gonna do is cross over those, and it was really good.
Yeah.
At first, it's like, oh, Dr. Eggman and Dr. Wily are a perfect team. They're so similar. And they roboticize, or they do a version of roboticizing all of Sonic's friends. So you get Shadow Man and Tails Man. Shadow Man is kind of weird because also Shadow Man is there from Mega Man.
Yeah.
But you get Tails Man and Rose Woman and Blaze Woman, all these Sonic versions of Robot Masters, which is real neat. But
Yeah.
they slowly defeat them, or Sonic and Mega Man slowly defeat them and rescue them, and then it just turns into a big battle. But as this comic book progresses over the course of 12 issues, Dr. Wily and Dr. Eggman get progressively more friction between the two, and by the end of it,
mostly because Dr. Eggman becomes more and more unhinged, and Dr. Wily becomes more and more afraid of how unhinged he is.
Yeah. And Dr. Wily at the end is when Sonic and Mega Man are both in Super Saiyan forms. Dr. Eggman is not willing to give up and literally destroys the universe that Sonic lives in service of that he does not want to lose. Well, Dr. Wily is just like, I give up. Don't even try. They do sabotage each other too, which is great.
It's very good.
But yeah, speaking of Dr. Eggman going unhinged, there is a whole arc. Archie, Sonic's Eggman, just straight up loses his mind because he's been defeated by Sonic so many times. And he just goes crazy for a while, and Snively takes over from SatAM. Yeah, and he's got a woman now, the Iron Queen, who can manipulate machinery. And it's actually a pretty formidable battle between Sonic and the Freedom Fighters versus the Iron Queen. But inevitably, they lose to Sonic, and Eggman snaps back into being lucid, and he's even more terrifying by that point because he figures out what he was missing about why Sonic could always defeat him. He had absorbed so much chaos energy and rain power that he was literally the chaos, the variable.
Chaos!
Yeah, not that chaos. Wrong series. Right villain. No, like the factor of random chance that no scientist can plan for. That's literally what Sonic is. So he just gives up trying to control Sonic, doesn't aim for Sonic, and instead aims for all his pals. Sally gets roboticized, so Sally is basically Sonic's love interest, and they literally kiss a few moments before they go into battle, and Sally eventually gets roboticized. So that's devastating, and they're friends with her. So this great leader of their group is now roboticized, and it's just sort of a falling out. Antoine, in a brave attempt to save the king, latches onto a Metal Sonic. Eggman blows up the Metal Sonic with Antoine in physical contact with it. And
oh God.
It's a kid's comic. Antoine doesn't die, but he's put into a coma. And it was revealed afterwards, after the comic had been reset, that Antoine was just going to be in coma forever. He was basically dead. Weren't going to bring that character back.
Murder this character without murdering this character, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. And Antoine's love interest, Bunny Rabbit, goes and joins Dr. Eggman for kind of a complicated reason, but she wants her robot parts back. She lost them because of a wizard. Don't worry about it. But yeah, Dr. Eggman is pretty crazy in the Archie comics. And honestly, I'm glad that the Sonic games started leaning into more of the craziness. And also that they got away from the, oh, well, I will join with you to help fight this other ancient demon because it got out of control of myself. I'm no longer in control of chaos. I'm no longer in control of chaos. Chaos!
Chaos!
No longer in control of Shadow, no longer in control of Metal Sonic, no longer in control of whatever the thing in Sonic 06.
No longer in control of Sigma. Dr. Wily, help me.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now Eggman seems to be the main villain. I don't know about the ending of Frontiers. I've heard there's something going on about it that people are upset about. I'm not really sure. Please don't spoil in the comments. But yeah, Eggman is frightening. And I love him for it.
I have always had an appreciation for him as well.
Yeah. I got just a lovely charm to him and an obsession with eggs in the same way that Dr. Wily is obsessed with skulls.
Yeah.
And in that crossover, it's the
skull egg zone.
Yes, skull egg zone. Correct. They couldn't decide, so they put both of them together.
Of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, Colin, what is your first pick?
A pretty, I guess, safe pick, so to speak. This is Bowser. You can't go wrong with Bowser.
Yeah, he's pretty safe compared to the hell-bent nature of Dr. Wily that we just discussed.
He just wants to take the princess to his castle.
Yep.
And depending on the game, he wants to force her into a thing.
Yep. He just wants to cuck Mario, okay?
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. What is there to say? I mean, it's Bowser.
Sometimes he just wants to find a mom for his son, which is commendable. Only one son, though, as I recently found out, because I missed this during the Mario Kart 8 reveal. Apparently, the Koopalings aren't Bowser's kids.
Yeah. Nope. Yeah. Unfortunate. They took his kids, just like Pac-Man lost his wife.
Yep.
Just like Ken lost his... What did Ken lose? I don't know. I don't know Street Fighter. Ken lost something.
Yeah.
And now he's a hobo.
I think he got framed for something.
Ah.
I think we'll find out more when Street Fighter 6 comes out.
Probably.
I think it's mostly a Street Fighter 6 plot.
Yeah. I just know Ken lost something very important to him. Poor guy.
Apparently his wife, kids, and home.
Oh.
He's been severely depressed ever since.
Oh no.
I used to wake up Dragon Punch, and now I don't want to wake up at all.
Oh. But yeah, Bowser is just one of those classic video game villains. I mean, it's from Mario.
Yeah, it's Bowser. He's Bowser.
Yeah, you go to his castle and you beat him up.
Bowser actually try to destroy the universe in Super Mario Galaxy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the most evil he's got. It was like
Yeah.
kind of uncharacteristic.
A little bit, but also like it's when the entire galaxy is the play field. I guess that's just kind of the nature of the game.
Yeah. But I also kind of want to give a preemptive shout out to Jack Black playing Bowser in the Mario movie coming up because he just freaking nailed it. All of the trailers that have had Bowser in it have been fantastic, and I can't wait to see him in the movie.
Do you yield?
I do not. That was a taste of our fury. Do you yield? I do not. Yeah. Oh my god, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, I would like to play Bowser's Inside Story because I hear that fleshes out Bowser a little more.
Yeah. Well, shoot. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, there's the Bowser's Fury for Super Mario 3D Land or whatever it is.
Yes.
I want to play that too. That's supposed to be
Yeah,
really, really good.
That too.
Yeah.
That looks awesome.
Yeah. Another one of those things I haven't gotten around to yet. I'm over here. Yeah. But I don't know. It's just he's just a good villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He steals the princess. And she's always in another castle.
Yeah.
Because he's got all these castles.
Yeah.
And I always loved fighting him in Super Mario World because just the atmosphere of his castle in that game is just so freaking epic.
Yeah. Yeah, Bowser's Castle in Super Mario World's always been one of my favorite Bowser castles.
Yeah.
So I really like the branching path.
Yeah.
That.
I was a big fan of Baby Bowser's fight in Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island.
Yeah.
That's one of the coolest fights in NES and NES game that I've played.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island is just a fantastic game.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not really pushing the limits of the Super Nintendo per se, it's pushing the limits of the Super FX chip.
Yeah, it sure is. In an interesting way, a lot of the Super FX thing is associated with like the Mode 7 and the Star Fox 3D effect.
Yeah.
But Yoshi's Island uses it for a lot of scaling, and I think there are some 3D elements, but it's more for like scaling and warping pixel art in ways that the SNES couldn't do alone.
Yep. Yeah, that was one real perk of the Super Nintendo's design as a console is the ability to include co-processors like the Super FX and Super FX 2 into the game cartridge.
Yeah.
Right.
And as a result, you get games like Super Mario World 2 that just look fantastic and are just full of all sorts of creative uses of these co-processors for doing translations, scaling, pseudo 3D effects, really cool Bowser fights.
Yeah.
But Lucas, what's your next boss? Boss. I keep saying boss. Villain. I mean, villains are also usually boss fight.
Yeah.
But
in this case, it's also a boss, so that's fine. Although, admittedly, this was almost an NPC, actually, and one that isn't on screen at all. My second choice for favorite villain is Dark Falls from specifically the Phantasy Star Online continuity.
that's a very Lucas pick.
Yes. And by extension, the Phantasy Star Zero continuity, because that actually takes place in the same universe as Phantasy Star Online 1. In typical Phantasy Star fashion, Dark Falls is the final boss of most of the game. It's the final boss specifically of Episode 1, but kind of like Dr. Wily, its influence is seen throughout the rest of the original Phantasy Star Online's episodes. The ancient evil sealed away in a spaceship that was crash-landed on the planet Ragul and is awakened by the research team of Dr. Osto. Seems like a very dubious individual. Doesn't seem to have a lot of sort of ethical decision-making to himself. Namely, upon discovering Dark Falls, he uses the Dark Falls cells to start doing science experiments, and including but not limited to legally declaring Heathcliff Flowen to be deceased for the sake of using him as a science experiment, which results in the creation of Olga Flo when he combines one of Pioneer 1's supercomputers, codenamed Olga, with Heathcliff Flowen, who at that point is kind of infected with Dark Falls, dark cells, and results in the creation of Olga Flo, which is a boss. I struggled with Olga Flo a lot. It's a very, very tough fight, especially by yourself. Anyways, back to episode 1, though. Dark Falls takes possession of Red Ring Rico, who is the daughter of Principal Tyrell, the leading government official of Pioneer 2, which is the sort of interplanetary colony ship that was going to meet up with the population of Pioneer 1 that had landed on Ragul 7 years earlier. Using Red Ring Rico as a host causes this large, massive explosion that destroys the settlement that Pioneer 1 had established on Ragul, and ends up corrupting all of the mining robots used in the mining facilities and science laboratory that Dr. Osto had created beneath the central dome where everyone was living. Is also able to alter the biology of all of the creatures living in the cave system just above the mines, but below the central dome. Just caused general disturbances amongst the otherwise peaceful animals that lived around the central dome facility where Pioneer 1 had established themselves. Flat out had creatures created from its Dark Falls cells, I believe known as D-subcell organisms. And then, of course, he's the final boss of episode 1, in which, unfortunately, in defeating Dark Falls there, you kind of accidentally the principal's daughter. Sorry, Rico. And then, as I kind of mentioned, Dr. Osto does some unethical human experimentation stuff and combines a supercomputer with a military general who is infected with Dark Falls cells and creates an even worse entity.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Then something episode 3 happens. Turns out Dark Falls and Olga Flo were always meant to kind of exist intertwined in this Phantasy Star continuity, and they've been dueling each other for centuries, and you just happen to be alive in the right or wrong time, depending on how you look at it. Episode 3 is kind of outside of now it's a card game, is kind of resolving the conflict by defeating both of them. Now, I did also mention that Phantasy Star Zero takes place in the same continuity, and is relevant because the planet that Phantasy Star Zero takes place on is Corral, which is the planet that Pioneer 1 and Pioneer 2 originated from, because the environment there was failing, and they were sent on a mission to colonize a new planet because of that. And then an event known as the Great Blank happens, and the memory circuits of all of the casts, which are androids in the Phantasy Star universe, gets erased. Human population is mostly wiped out. Nobody knows what Newmans are anymore because they all went to live on the moon. And it turns out that Dark Falls is also responsible for this through the corruption of Corral's Mother Trinity computer. And under the influence of Dark Falls, Mother Trinity wipes out a majority of the human population, causes the Great Blank that erased the cast's memory circuits, and then somehow the Newman population on Corral ends up living on the moon serving Mother Trinity. So the plot of Phantasy Star Zero ends up being Newmans get dropped in landing pods on Corral to observe the human and casts kind of reformulating and rebuilding. Then they discover that Mother Trinity is still around and go to pay her a visit, only to find out that Dark Falls is responsible for all of this again. So the Phantasy Star Online universe is a very doomed universe, because no matter how you slice it, Dark Falls is going to be there. Whether you stayed at home on Corral in its failing environment, Dark Falls is there to cause problems. Yes. But if you happen to be on Pioneer 1, then Dark Falls just obliterated you. I'm sorry. Like Dr. Osto and his scientists and Red Ring Rico, in completely separate from each other, survived, and no one else did.
Yikes.
And the people of Pioneer 2 end up stuck on Pioneer 2 for the rest of their lives, basically, because even all the way in episode 3, which is, I believe, a century in the future, they're still living on Pioneer 2. Huh. They never, because of the events of episodes 1 and 2, the people of Pioneer 2 are still living on Pioneer 2 in the future. So it's kind of grim when you look at it.
Yeah.
And it's all Dark Falls' fault.
Of course. What a jerk.
Yeah. Also, Dr. Osto sucks because he's responsible for most of this.
Yeah.
No. Dr. Osto's the one that unsealed Dark Falls from the ruined spaceship on Ragul, and Dr. Osto is also responsible for the creation of Olga Flow, which is almost worse because it's like one of their Pioneer 1's highest ranking military officers, combined with Dark Falls, combined with a supercomputer.
You idiot!
Yep. It's real bad.
Well, let's turn things over to Neal for your second pick. What do you got?
Well, I have another Sonic villain. This guy.
What?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's on character for Neal.
He's mostly black. I'm going to amp this guy up. He's mostly black, has red eyes, green irises, and he's a really sick character design just in general. He's super edgy. He's got an even edgier theme music, and he actually kills Sonic. It's Mephiles the Dark from Sonic 06.
What a boss.
No, I'm kidding. That'd be terrible. Actually, it's Parky from Mother 3. I'm not going to do more Sonic villains. I wanted to do one franchise per villain thing. No more villains, or Sonic villains. Porky is the main villain of Mother 3 and the secondary villain of Mother 2/Earthbound.
That's all, folks?
And that's all. That's all, folks. Not that Porky.
Oh.
This is what most Western fans know as Pokey. They only played Earthbound. But because you're going to have to help me out a bit here, because I haven't watched a playthrough of Earthbound in a long time. So I mostly know the Mother 3 stuff.
No problem.
But Porky was one of my favorite villains in Mother 3 just because he kind of comes out of nowhere. And even at the time, I was like, "Oh, this is the character from Earthbound."
Yeah.
And like they hint at it a whole ton, but like this world is completely different than the previous Earthbound world, and Porky just kind of slowly infects the storyline.
Yeah, he was able to dimension hop because of kind of a spider mech of sorts that he'd acquired through Gygus in
Yes.
Earthbound.
Yeah, and back in Earthbound, this person was just a kid,
Yeah.
a neighbor of the protagonist Ness.
Yep.
And he slowly turns evil over the course of Earthbound.
Yeah.
And it's kind of depressing too, just in Mother 3, because he's super old while also still having the mental state of a child.
Yeah, Earthbound's time travel process is not very kind to organic beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is why when you go to the Cave of the Past in Earthbound, you do it as robots instead.
Right. You have your mind planted in a robot.
Yep. Because Dr. Andonuts, Jeff's dad, kind of a genius, even though he's also kind of a goofball.
That's kind of genius.
Yeah. Also, Dr. Andonuts, since we're on the subject, gets wrangled into Mother 3's plot by Porky.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, a bunch of... Doesn't someone else from Earthbound show up? Or am I just thinking of that one room where there's a bunch of Earthbound stuff?
Might be the room with the Earthbound stuff. Because there's also the Earthbound regeneration capsule that
right.
Dr. Andonuts has in his lab. Also see the Sky Runner.
Yeah.
Which definitely was not named the Skywalker originally.
Yeah. He's a cool character because it kind of shows you like what an immature villain would do if like they had literally the mind of a child and were pure evil.
Yeah.
I wasn't completely sure from my experience watching Earthbound playthroughs if Porky like willingly turned evil or if it was like Gygus corrupting him. But
I think it's a bit of both.
He
is kind of like the spoiled child of rich parents, sort of.
Right.
Thing.
Yeah, because he like hides when you're initially fighting the Starman, right after you talk to Buzz.
Yeah, like he spends most of that fight just kind of cowering in fear. Meanwhile, his little brother Picky is at least trying to help in the form of doing 1 or 2 damage.
not helpful, but
yeah, he's no Buzz.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least Picky attempted to make an effort.
Yeah.
It's also possible that Pokey was also sort of influenced by the Mani Mani statue, which...
oh, yes.
Someone who lives nearby to Ness and Pokey is a man by the name of Liar Exaggerate.
Yeah. Earthbound names.
And, yeah, he... in a tunnel that he was digging in his own house, discovered the Mani Mani statue, which Pokey ends up stealing and uses to wreak havoc in Fourside. And eventually you fight the Mani Mani statue and destroy the Mani Mani statue and relieve the mayor of Fourside of its influence. But yeah, it's a statue that causes you to turn evil, basically.
Right. It's related to the dream sequence in Earthbound, correct?
Yes.
Right.
I believe so. Because, yeah, when you go and confront the evil inside of you, when you go to Magic Ant in Earthbound, your evil self takes the form of the Mani Mani statue. Whether it's, like, the Mani Mani statue had influence on the evil within you, or it just happened to be the sprite that they chose.
Right.
But when you get to the center of your mind in Magic Ant, there's a statue that sure looks an awful lot like the Mani Mani statue. So your neighbor did find it underneath his own house, so it's entirely possible that this is just like manifestations of evil from its influence deep underground underneath your house.
Right. Yeah. Earthbound always seemed to me like there's lots of dark stuff going on in it, but ultimately it's a pretty lighthearted adventure, except for that ending.
Yeah.
Mother 3, on the other hand, just gets depressing pretty
Yeah.
quickly, and then all the characters go through a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
Really bad stuff. Your mom dies.
Yep.
Spoilers.
Porky's fault.
Porky's fault. Yeah, literally everything in that game is Porky's fault. Everything would have been fine if it wasn't for Porky.
Yep.
Porky also wants to ruin all the nice creatures of the land.
Yep.
Make them...
Whether it be cybernetically enhancing them or combining them with other creatures.
Yeah, chimeras. Kind of cool, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I get why he likes that, but at the same time, don't do that to actual animals.
I've seen enough Sonic to know that you should not be partially turning animals into robots.
Yes. Because one of them might turn into Bunny Rabbit and be one of your biggest problems.
Yeah.
But yeah, Porky is evil. And he just doesn't have any concern for what he does.
Yeah.
He will literally ruin an entire world just because he wants it to be cooler.
Yeah. Like, this world doesn't have computers and TVs, so I'm gonna introduce happy boxes and everyone gets to enjoy them.
That literally just blink colors.
Yep.
I don't know if that was just they didn't want to animate a whole thing to loop, or if they literally blink colors and that's all they do.
Hey, moneyless society, how would you like to have money? What's money? We don't know. We'll take it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Hey, you stole this thing that I had no idea what it's for from me. I can't believe the designated town thief was a thief.
Yeah. Quite a good story, Mother 3.
Very good story.
But yeah. Porky from Mother 3. Evil dude. Mother 3, good game. Nintendo, localize it, please. Colin, what is your last pick or second pick? Blah.
Yeah. Well, I can't really do a podcast about favorite villains and not talk about a villain from Final Fantasy, can I?
Yeah. Is it Sephiroth?
No, because
Okay,
that would be what you would assume.
Yeah.
Because whenever you hear about villains in Final Fantasy,
Fantasy.
you either hear Sephiroth or you hear Kefka. And I'm going to talk about neither. Because
Sometimes you hear about Chaos now that he's a meme.
Chaos! But I'm going to talk about a guy that you would just, the moment you see him, the first time you see him, you just want to punch him right in the face. And then you get to punch him in the face several times throughout the course of the game. That guy is Maester Seymour Guado from Final Fantasy X. Because, I don't know, I've always kind of liked him, even though, like, in you love to hate this guy sort of way. Just his freaking pompous demeanor. He friggin' steps off this boat in Luca the first time you see him, and he's just, everyone's all swooning over him, and Titus, the main character, is just like, I don't get it. This guy's kind of a douche. And then, yeah, some very dark things are revealed surrounding Seymour throughout the course of the game, and he becomes not the main antagonist in the game, but basically, he's the big secondary antagonist, the one that you really spend a lot of time kind of butting heads with throughout the course of the game. He also has a really cool theme song, as you know, Final Fantasy tends to have. But he's also Final Fantasy does this thing where a lot of, like, several times throughout the series, they'll actually take a character that ends up being a big villain and they put him in your party for a little while just to kind of demonstrate how absurdly powerful he is. So they kind of did that with Seymour for a little while in Final Fantasy X. There's one portion of the game where he's actually part of your party for a pretty decent boss fight, and it's like he's just so completely overpowered compared to the rest of your party. They did that once with Sephiroth in Final Fantasy VII during a flashback scene where they really demonstrated just how freaking powerful Sephiroth is.
Seymour, the boss is on fire. Help!
Okay, more fire. But yeah, I've
mother,
just...
that's just a giant whale.
I always liked the way this character was written, even though, like, he's not one of, like, the big freaking Final Fantasy villains that you hear about all the time on lists and stuff. Like, he's not Sephiroth or he's not Kefka, but he's got this just demeanor about him that just from the moment you first see him, something's kind of off. And then more the game goes on and it kind of comes out, like, his past and just the things that he's done is kind of messed up. So, yeah, Seymour Guado. You love to punch the guy in the face.
Yeah.
He has a very punchable face.
Yeah, that's usually a good thing with villains is when they have punchable faces.
Yeah.
He's definitely not short on the punchable face front. He's also extremely tall, but I think that's also because the Guado race is just they're really tall and limber, and they have very uncomfortably long fingers. But Seymour was also notable in the lore because he wasn't a full-blooded Guado because his mother was human, and he was kind of ostracized for it, and that kind of played into his dark past a little bit because he was so shunned for being a half-breed.
A dark black past was his most valued possession.
Yeah. Now I want to play Final Fantasy X again.
Yeah.
I love that game so much.
It's fun to reminisce upon.
It's so good. And I want to play Blitzball.
Yeah.
I still think they should just make Blitzball a standalone game.
Yeah.
It'd be so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I won't get it. I won't get into that any further though. Lucas, what's your last pick for today?
Well, he's punchable in the face, depending on the game. It's everyone's favorite former Too Big for Super Smash Brothers flying pterodactyl dragon, Ridley.
The freaking screech and fusion.
Oh my gosh. R.I.P. headphone users.
It's just ingrained in my mind.
It's so bad in Fusion. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's the Game Boy Advance. What do you expect?
Better. I expect better, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, Zero Mission did come out after Fusion, but it was much better in Zero Mission.
Yeah.
And, with all of the SNES remakes that came to the Game Boy Advance, they definitely could have just reused this Super Metroid Ridley Screech, and that would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
Anyways, Ridley is kind of a bastard.
He just won't stay dead.
Yep. Yeah. Ridley accidentally put into place the events that would eventually lead to his own demise in the form of invading the space colony K2L, where the Aaron family were living. Samus was 3 years old at the time. And during a invasion that Ridley had led of space pirates stealing mining reserve of a floraltite that was mined on the K2L colony, Ridley meets Samus, tries to kill Samus. Samus's mother intervenes. Samus's mother dies. And then, to stop the space pirates, Samus's dad destroys the colony, more or less. And unfortunately dies in the blast. Ridley is injured through all of this. Samus ends up eventually in the care of the Chozo, where they infuse her with Chozo DNA, give her the power suit and whatnot. But Ridley, injured in the explosions resulting from Chief Rodney Aaron's efforts to stop the space pirates. Ridley later reveals in one of their first encounters that Ridley had feasted upon the corpses of the people in the K2L colony, including, but not limited to, Samus's mom and dad. So Ridley ate Samus's parents, and that's really messed up.
Oh.
Yeah, not only did you create your own arch nemesis, but you also ate their parents, and well, Samus didn't take kindly to that.
Understandable.
Years later, space pirates would take control of the Chozo computer Mother Brain, who I almost picked for this, but ultimately decided on Ridley, because Ridley is really the one responsible for all of the actions of the space pirates. Ridley ends up killing Grey Voice, one of Samus's Chozo surrogate parents, who had falsely defected to the space pirates' side against the Chozo in order to infiltrate and try and stop Mother Brain. And, well, got Ridley'd in the process. Years later, they have their encounter during Samus's Zero mission, where he is promptly defeated by Samus because, well, that's how the game goes. You later, while infiltrating the space pirate mothership that had landed on Zebes, encounter a robot in the shape of Ridley, known as Mecha Ridley, or also known as the Ridley robot, because Ridley is incredibly vain and decided to build a robot modeled in his own image.
Yeah.
And in the final act of Zero Mission, you defeat Mecha Ridley. Then, in the events following Zero Mission, Samus receives a distress signal from a space pirate frigate, specifically the frigate Orpheon. And on board, Samus finds a partially cybernetically enhanced Ridley that everyone comes to know as Meta Ridley. Or as Colin recently has been calling Facebook Ridley, because they changed the name.
Facebook Ridley. Yep.
So you end up encountering Ridley again on Talon 4. Then he's absent during the events of Metroid Prime 2. And then you see him again in sort of a rebuilt fashion, surviving the encounter on Talon 4. You encounter him on the planet Norion during the beginning events of Metroid Prime 3, and then later fight him again, or after being transformed into Omega Ridley from Phazon Enhancement. It's still just Meta Ridley at the beginning of the game. You fight and defeat him. And then you fight him again, but he's Phazon enhanced. And then something that was introduced during the remake Metroid 2 Samus Returns is a additional final boss of Proteus Ridley, which is a slightly less cybernetically enhanced Ridley, but still cybernetically enhanced because his mechanical enhancements are kind of falling off him.
Oh, jeez.
One final encounter after Samus defeats the Metroid Queen, and the first attempt to recapture the last Metroid. Big final battle. Samus prevails, as she does. And Ridley finally, no longer cybernetically enhanced, just comes back as regular Ridley in Super Metroid. And of course, invades the Ceres space colony where Samus had just dropped off the last Metroid. And then it was no longer in captivity and the galaxy was no longer at peace. And of course, landing back on Zebes, it becomes a quest to find Ridley and hopefully find the baby Metroid. But then, upon defeating Ridley, at which point he's actually dead this time for real, I swear, you find out the baby Metroid is gone. Go into Turian and discover a rebuilt Mother Brain and more Metroids. And eventually the baby gets Mother Brained. Samus becomes so angry she can't die. Destroys Mother Brain. Then in the dubiously canon Metroid Other M, it turns out they had harvested some Ridley samples, and, well, they grew a new Ridley. Or rather, a clone of Ridley, because Ridley is still dead. This is a new Ridley grown from a kind of larval form known as Little Birdie, and then it becomes a weird, mysterious creature that is sort of just a quadrupedal Ridley with fur on his head. And then from there, you fight Ridley again on the bottle ship where Metroid Other M takes place. And then Ridley eventually gets eaten by a new Metroid Queen. And then afterwards, Metroid Fusion happens. And, well, kind of the same, almost the same plot as Metroid Other M, except it came first. The X-Parasites infect the creatures aboard the Biologic Space Laboratories research station. And it just so happens that amongst making clones of Metroids from a DNA swab of the baby from Samus's armor, and also from its brief time aboard the Ceres space colony, there is also they found Ridley's body and they had it in cryo storage. And the X-Parasite infect it. And you get to fight Ridley again. He's back from the dead, but now he's an X-Parasite. Just the boss that won't die.
How many times we gotta teach you this lesson, old man?
He's just so incredibly killable, and just...
He's gonna be back in Metroid 6.
Oh, absolutely.
We got Kraid and Dread.
Yep. We got Kraid and Dread. We got Ridley back from the dead in Other M. And also in Other M, we got a surprise Fantoon return. Maybe Metroid 6 is the year of the Dragon return. I love that cool crap. But yeah, there is entirely too many Ridleys. He won't die.
He won't die.
He also shows up in Subspace Emissary.
Yeah. Yep.
And then in a later Smash game, he kills Mario.
Yeah. And he ate Samus's parents.
What an awful, awful thing.
Yeah.
Ridley is.
I vaguely remember, but couldn't, well, looking into Ridley's backstory a little bit more, couldn't confirm this. I think in like a manga adaptation or some sort of spin-off of the Metroid series, it was mentioned that, like, on top of just eating Samus's parents, also absorbed some of their DNA and actually spoke to Samus as their parents. Or, yeah, as Samus's parents. Yeah. So, Ridley's just rude.
Yeah. Kind of rude.
Yeah. Fun to fight in all of those variations, though.
Yeah.
Especially Prime 1, when you can hit him with the boost ball and he just falls apart.
I found in Zero Mission he doesn't like missiles very much.
No. He also struggles to hit you if you just stay below his claws.
Yep. So, Neal, what do you got for your last pick?
Well, I hate to tell you this, but I lied. Because my last pick is actually another Sonic villain.
What?
He is mostly black. He has red eyes with yellow irises. And has just a really sick visual character design in general. He's super edgy. And has an even edgier theme song. And he nearly kills Sonic. It's Infinite from Sonic Forces. No, I'm kidding again. But still, it's kind of weird that these characters are, like, identical. It always kind of bugged me. No, Infinite is not a good villain. Instead, I picked GLaDOS from Portal.
Yes.
We were discussing before the podcast that all of us have really only played Portal 1.
Yeah.
So, this might be a little Portal 1 centric. But I loved GLaDOS when I first heard of her. I didn't have a computer that could play Portal 1 or a console that had the orange box or whatever it was called. So I just absorbed a lot of the lore through the internet and the whole cake is a lie thing. I thought GLaDOS was fascinating. I'm a big fan of AIs that go evil.
Yeah.
GLaDOS is just a really funny example of one of those.
Kind of an unsettling thing to say given the current day and age.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Considering AI is kind of at the forefront of the conversation right now.
Yeah.
Evil sentient AI. Feminine personality. Is GLaDOS a mother brain?
I don't know. I don't think so. She's backed up on a bunch of spheres.
Yes. I like the angry sphere because it's voiced by Faith No More and Mr. Bungle vocalist Mike Patton.
Oh, nice. Huh. Yeah, all the spheres are cool.
Yeah. Everyone loves the space sphere.
I was just about to bring that up. Space. Gotta go to space.
Yeah,
but no,
we love the space sphere like the space sphere loves space.
Yes. Nobody loves space spheres, or nobody loves space as much as Space Sphere. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed when I finally did play Portal, just how well that narrative was put together through the gameplay rather than just like telling you what's going on or watching what's going on. Like, if there's a form of show don't tell for video games, Portal is a great example of it. Because there aren't many cutscenes. You get like voiceovers from GLaDOS, but they're all usually about the gameplay that you're interacting with. I know Portal 2 kind of shies away from that, but Portal 1 is quite the experience. I recommend it, and you're going to love GLaDOS by the end.
Yes.
She is fantastic. She does try to drop you into lava, which is a great moment.
Yeah.
That's also where the score kicks in. It's like there's not too much music in Portal while you're doing the training phases, but as soon as she tries to kill you, all of a sudden there's this really tense music behind it. And how can I talk about GLaDOS without mentioning Still Alive?
Yeah.
Still Alive is
Yeah.
great. Like, really great. Like, incredibly good songwriting.
Yeah.
I've played it for both of my parents, and they're like, "Wait, this is from a video game?"
Clearly, she doesn't want to let you know that she's evil. I mean, she just wants you to assume the party submission position.
Yes, and there will be cake.
Don't believe you. The cake is a lie.
But there is actually a cake in the game.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. It's a lie. It's not real.
But you can reach the cake if you break Portal hard enough.
Yeah. Can you eat it? Can you have the cake and eat it too?
No. Most of the time, people just put the companion cube on top of it.
Nice. Yeah.
Or they make a couple of portals in the cake room and juggle the cube in it. I've seen a few variations on breaking into that room.
Yeah, Portal is very easily broken, which is great for speedrunners.
Yeah. Surprisingly, even though it's derived from mostly the same code, Portal 2 is relatively unscathed as far as brokenness.
Yeah. Yep, they fixed a lot of problems. But yeah, as far as villains go, Baddest is definitely one that ranks up there highly on lists just because she's so memorable, and it's from a game that isn't like a Sonic game or a Mario game where it's sort of aimed at kids. Portal is family friendly for the most part, but like.
And then there's GLaDOS that commits what could be considered war crimes and gasses the entire Aperture Science laboratories with neurotoxin.
Yeah. Colin, what's your number 3?
My last villain of the day is Malos from Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Ah, of course.
Yes.
Malos is a really cool character because he's bad and evil, but he's constantly at odds with himself and his own nature. Because like Pyra and Mithra, who are the Aegis that accompanies Rex, the main character, Malos is also an Aegis, but instead of resonating with someone more pure of heart like Rex with Pyra and Mithra, Malos's driver was a man named Amalthus, who kind of rose to power among like the big ruling nation of the world of Alrest. And in doing so, he did so throughout kind of as a way to kind of get back at humanity, because he witnessed a lot of turmoil in his life, like his mother was murdered right in front of him and stuff like that. And just, he had a very low view of humanity as a whole based on his own life. And what happens when a driver in the Xenoblade 2 universe resonates with their blade is part of their personality is then imprinted on that blade when it awakens. So Malos being an Aegis, he's supposed to be kind of like the purest form of a blade. They're supposed to be like the ultimate blades that are able to take all of the information from the lesser blades and kind of compile it basically and preserve it, and then continue the cycle of making new blades and stuff like that in the world. But because he was awakened by someone like Amalthus, even though he should have had more of a kind of pure, more neutral personality, all of Amalthus's hatred for humanity was kind of imprinted on him. So he's constantly throughout doing all of these evil things, trying to destroy the world and wipe out humanity. But at the same time, he's turning around and wondering, is like, is this really what I want? Because he knows how like blades work with the imprinting and stuff like that, because he's like one of the master blades. So he's like constantly at odds with himself, and he doesn't really find out until it's too late kind of what his real true desires were. But it just a really deep character that at the like kind of like Seymour, he's written in a way that you almost in certain ways relate to him. Like he doesn't feel like Seymour feels like he's completely evil because he is. But Malice, there's several scenes throughout the game where he kind of makes sense in a way, and like he's struggling with being evil, but he can't control himself because he feels like that's his nature, that's his reason for existing, to destroy humanity, because that's what Amalthus thought of humans. He thought humans were scum because of what they did in his own life. But yeah, it was just that constant dynamic of him doing these acts of evil, but at the same time wondering if it's really his desire to be evil, was just really, really interesting to me. And it's something that I always like when I go back and play through Xenoblade 2. Is one of the highlights is just whenever Malos is on screen, he's freaking awesome. But one of his kind of quotes that kind of sheds some light on his inner turmoils, he's like, what are we in the end? This hunger I feel, this thirst, is it my own or is it someone else? Sometimes I can't tell. And it's like, that's just his character in a nutshell. Like, he feels this primal urge to destroy, but he doesn't know if that's really what he wants to do, or if there's something else like in the back of his mind, like some kind of program that he can't break free of or something. Mm-hmm. That was a really interesting character. It made him really relatable. I like relatable villains. Like Xenoblade is really good at writing villains that are evil, but at the same time they have qualities to them that are still relatable. And that's something that Tetsuya Takahashi actually has talked that's something that he likes to do with villains. Like he will write villains that are just completely irredeemably evil, but he also likes to have a villain that the player can relate to at the same time. So there's always this kind of push-pull between them.
Right.
That's one of the many reasons why the Xenoblade Chronicles series is so good in my eyes. But anyway,
I always enjoy villains that are like, you can understand their line of thinking of why they're doing this evil thing that they're doing.
Yeah. It's like you have your super twisted, just I want to destroy everything because that's why I'm here villain, kind of like Ganon in The Legend of Zelda. He's just there to destroy the world and make it in his own image. And then you have characters like Malos or Jin, which is also another one of the lead antagonists in Xenoblade 2, where they're especially on Jin, for Jin, is like they're fighting for what they believe in their heart is the correct way based on their life experiences.
Right.
But they're not really morally right, or not morally right, but like right as far as like the main party views it, sort of thing.
Right. And that's closer to what reality is. Like there aren't a lot of in history, there aren't a lot of bad people that were just like, I want to be bad because I want to be bad.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like even the worst, like Hitler, he was trying to purify Germany. So like he had a sense of logic. It wasn't just, I want to kill everything because I do.
I struggle to call him relatable though, but
I wouldn't say Hitler is relatable, but he does have a motivation that isn't.
Yeah. It isn't just like pure destruction. It's something that in his twisted, effed up mind is justified, but
right.
But yeah. Before we divulge down the rabbit hole of crazy stuff like that, let's move on to our weekly link to the past. And today, on the date of recording, it's March 5th. Not really a very exciting day for video game releases, so we're going to jump ahead and do a link to the past for the day that this episode goes live, which is March 7th, because 6 years ago, on March 7th, we got a game called Nier Automata.
Ooh.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. A very well-known action RPG developed by Platinum Games, published by Square Enix. It's a sequel to Nier from 2010 and a spin-off and sequel to the Drakengard series, which I don't have experience with, but if it's anything as good as what Nier is, I really gotta give it a look. But yeah, it got a Switch port last year, which Lucas can attest to. It's pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just that hack and slash action RPG gameplay that Platinum Games is so good at. This is actually our second link to the past in a row that's a Platinum Games game, now that I think of it, because last week was Metal Gear Rising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so Platinum getting the shout outs.
Yeah. Believe for one of our previous episodes, you featured one of the Bayonetta games. So yeah, we've been giving Platinum Games a lot of love this podcast.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, they make some pretty good games.
They sure do. Nier Automata's been my first experience with it so far, and yeah, that is good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, plus I still gotta go. I want to get the Switch version myself and really play through it a lot more as well, because like the story kind of unfolds throughout several playthroughs, which is what's really cool to me about the game. It's not a long game either, so like it's not something that you're putting freaking 30 hours in a single playthrough and then you're like, oh crap, I didn't even get the full story. What is this? It's like when I played on the PS4, it took me about 10 hours for my first playthrough. It's not too bad.
Yeah,
right.
It gives it a lot of replay value, and since it's like you don't have to play every single playthrough back to back to back, but yeah, it's really good game. Has a really cool aesthetic. It's got an anime adaptation now that they're working on. I hear is pretty good.
Cool.
Hopefully it gets a dub. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But yeah. Happy 6th birthday, Nier Automata. And with that out of the way, that's going to be the end of episode 22. To the listeners, what video game villains do you just love to hate? Did we discuss any of them here today? You can email the podcast directly at fans.togp@gmail.com and let us know, as well as ask any other questions you may have, and we may read and respond to it on a future episode. But anyway, Lucas, where can we find you outside of the podcast?
Find me on YouTube at Carnevil9, that one gaming podcast. I'm working on an archive of long plays for the games we feature on our That One Game series. And you can also find me on Twitter at Carn_evil_999. It's a great way to stay up to date on most recently some experimentation with the operating system FreeBSD. Shout outs to the FreeBSD community. You're great. I love you.
All right. And Neal, where can they find you outside the podcast?
I am on Twitch at twitch.tv/VMK9. I stream there consistently. I am on Twitter as @IamVMK9, all lowercase, and I tweet there sometimes. And I am also on YouTube at youtube.com/@VMK9. I post there never.
All right. And as for myself, if you are watching / listening to this on YouTube, you're already in the right place. That's youtube.com/deliciousmorsels. You can also find me on Twitter at deliciousmorsel. And also, if you enjoy the music in our That One Game series, I have links to my Spotify and Apple Music artist profiles in the description below. You can check those out. The music for the Celeste episode is finally available on streaming platforms, so go check that out. And as always, if you liked what you heard here today, please be sure to hit the subscribe button where that's an option. Leave us a good review on Apple Podcasts because I hear they like that stuff. Hit the like button if that's a thing, and feel free to share this episode with a friend. We're going to be back in a couple weeks with another episode, but until then, have a wonderful rest of your day, and remember,
Stay for the cows.
Stay for the space colony destroying dragon.